Hey, welcome. This is Dr. Bush for the process. This is week 7, Sunday game scripts, uncertainty rankings, defense against position, and some Vegas considerations. Do this every week. Just got off this morning, Saturday morning. We did our weekend podcast. I talked a lot about aspects of this article that's up on scienceoffantasyfootball.com. I'm going to highlight some of these things, but there's a lot of depth here, and it should be. It's not, everything's not going to be laid out for you. And, it's just the way my process is. I look at Vegas and scoring. I try to look at points that the game will produce, kind of high to low. High points usually means lots of PPR goodness. Low points can be depressing, uh, lots of defense kind of situations, and maybe not so good for our lineups and PPR goodness. I also include defense against the position metrics. Give me an idea of what are the hot spots, what are the key areas that are really good or really tough. And I tried to use that to make some final decisions, certainly tie-breaking decisions. And I looked at overall, then running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, and defense. Okay, so easy to tough. Then I finally include my players' rankings, position level, my rankings, FSPR, Fantasy Sports Professor rankings, and my uncertainty levels, which if you've been here before, you know that high uncertainty means a range of outcomes that are very large. So it could be good or very bad news. Low uncertainty players should have a smaller range of outcomes. One might think of them as safer than more high uncertainty players, but the upside may be limited in low uncertainty players. Hell, still gathering data to answer that question. Players are ranked from 100 or so to 0. So for me, about 75 points or better is something I like to consider as a number one in that position, right? 75 to 50 is probably a number two. Below 50 is a 3-4 type. So you get a kind of a feel for what I'm thinking. I mean, you can't slice a player ranked at 60 versus 61. They're the same player. Okay. Even 60 versus, say, 68. It's lenient to the 68, but it's, what that gap is. It's the tier concept. This is just guidelines. Okay. This is not, oh, Bush, you're giving me exactly what to do. No. That's why you keep your diary to figure out if what I'm doing helps you, if you are paying attention. Very few players will stick with anything. Okay. If, they don't do well a week, if they listen to me, thank you for those that are. Yay. You'll move on to something else, some other pie in the sky thing, some other schlick situation, Twitter, website, whatever. And if that doesn't work, you'll move on. You'll just keep moving around, and it probably won't help you out. You certainly won't learn, if you don't keep a diary. And so you need to find what works for you. And that's the biggest key to fantasy football success. What works for you? What are you good at? What are you not good at? Where do you need to work to get better? Okay. I'm trying to teach you to catch fishes, not just give you a fish. Okay, big difference. I know most people want the fish. They don't want to have to work for it. I got it. Give me the fire and I'll chop wood later. as a university professor, when we have students who do that, just tell me what I need to slip out the door. No, that's not my philosophy. I have uh, next. I have team power rankings. So each week I reformulate the high and low teams. So you have high, kind of average, and low. And I just like to set the tone for trade, streaming, lineups, any kind of gambles I'm going to do. Daily fantasy, I don't spend a lot of money, $5 a week. It's just, I just hadn't had time to explore that world. Okay. And so I don't step in where it could be a minefield. I don't need more headache than I got just trying to make lineups, much less trying to be the billionaire on DraftKings or something. Crazy crap. Top this week: Cincinnati, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, the Raiders, the Chargers, Miami, Baltimore, Cleveland should be considered pretty good. And some weaknesses this week: Arizona, Atlanta, Indianapolis, the Giants, New Orleans, Chicago, Washington, Tennessee, Houston. Carolina, note that Arizona and New Orleans already played, so they were both kind of at the bottom. So it was an interesting game. It's probably not surprising the defense would make a big difference versus the offense. That's probably unremarkable in that situation. So it sets the tone. When in doubt, move towards the top teams, move away from the bottom teams. Okay? I mean, does that mean since the Giants are ranked at the bottom, I shouldn't play bargain? No. It doesn't mean you should do any. There is no hard and fast rules in fantasy football. Okay? So if that's what you're looking for, it's not here at all. This is layers of an onion, right? If you're a Shrek fan. And we peel them back and, but the whole onion is the decision. There's lots of things. It's a system. As a biologist, understanding, say, the ecosystem, it's a system. That means there are multiple parts, and a lot of times it is very hard to figure out the second order effects that we don't even see. Okay, that's what makes the system really tricky. We don't understand. Things are unknown. If you move a player out, if a player is injured, what does that cause? What's the ripple effects of that? And it's not necessarily easy to predict that at all. That's why we're still learning. If it was easy, then everybody'd be winning, right? And then it would be much of a game. Here's the table, and look at uh, above and below the scaled power rankings. So New England is exactly average. And then here's the ones below. Here's the ones above for this week. And you can see that Carolina is one half of New Orleans. Arizona was favored over New Orleans. Look, it's -5 out of 7. It's the battle of the eh. And this was a little bit favored over that. Okay, it happens. Does that mean that New Orleans couldn't have won? No, it just means that's kind of how I foresaw the beginning, the whole situation. That doesn't mean things can't happen. Obviously, things can happen. Here's the scales. You look across at the power rankings, high to low. Okay. Uncertainty levels. So I look at the players for each team, figure out the levels of high, average, and low uncertainty players, and make a metric to compare the high and average to the low players. The higher the metric number, it's called HA/L, high average divided by low. High numbers means very uncertain, low numbers less uncertain. Okay, so just gives you a sense of where things are. So Green Bay pretty high this week. Second, yet there's a lot of individual issues. 7 of the 9 players I ranked are high or average uncertainty. So I'm not sure exactly in the murk who exactly is going to come out of the other end and score and make points this week. I'm just saying overall the team probably is going to do pretty good, but exactly who that is, that's part of the subtlety of it. So you need to figure this out. Again, setting some limits and whatnot, see what is going on. But for instance, Dallas and Detroit are playing. Dallas is a little bit more uncertain than Detroit. I mean, think about it. They got Dak Prescott back in. If that doesn't add to the mystery of the game, it doesn't mean that Detroit is a sure shot over that. No, not even close. It's just kind of weighing the two as kind of a landscape. To me, I'm not sure there's much difference in some of these down here versus up here. I think, yeah, Carolina is very different than Cincinnati this week, right? The further apart teams are, the more difference there probably will be. And here it is ranked this way: high uncertain teams in red, low uncertain in green. So you can add that to the mix. And again, this is like seasoning to your gumbo, right? You add a little bit here, a little bit there. You're trying to make it better, but it's not a guarantee, right? So, you're saying, well, this process is fairly involved. Well, that's fine. That's how fantasy really is. It's not just some number. Okay, this is 8th versus 7th, so therefore I play the 7. If that's how you're doing, you're probably overall not winning in the long run. It's just more subtlety to decision making than just one number. One number is not going to represent anything. It's a guide. All my numbers are guides. Okay? So I feel like I am preaching on the preacher box here. Sorry, that's just the way it is. Okay, it's again, the few that are listening uh, probably are figuring that out. Okay, so I like to focus on the high scoring games of the week. Feel more confident about the scoring levels of those teams. This week it's Bengals, Falcons, Cowboys, Lions, Chargers, Seahawks, Chiefs, 49ers. Vegas figures about 48 points. The best is Chargers, Seahawks at 52. Who would imagine that would be the highest game of the week as far as Vegas? The spread is about mainly a touchdown between the favorite and the underdog. The Chief 49ers are much closer. I think when there's a short spread, they're almost implying that the last team has a chance to win. If there's a touchdown or higher, it almost implies that the favorites are a little bit more solid. And so you might have more garbage time opportunities for the underdogs. So you might play that. I talked about that in the podcast. You can listen with more detail. So these would be the teams, and then the players on those teams I would be looking to shoehorn into my lineups. Okay. I would feel better about those. Okay. And then I give you my DAPs, and here are the 4 teams. And so how you read this is I got game, team, the week, the segment. So we're still in the front half, but we're rapidly, I think next week would become the last half of our season. Home and away. So Atlanta's playing in Cincinnati. So that's never good. Opponent, Atlanta plays to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I've got it kind of reddish. That's a tough, not super tough, but tough. The offense is below average tough, so they're going to give them some troubles. Good news is the running game for Atlanta may have an opportunity, but the passing, and with Pitts even, he's probably the best choice uh, of the passing option because it's not as tough as the others. But the problem is if Cincinnati gets ahead of Atlanta, you see, they probably have to go away from the rushing. So even though that might be an advantage this team will have early on, by the end of the third, fourth quarter, that may be all but gone. So if the pass catcher running back, and I'm not sure that's Alger or not, maybe Huntley, is that the other one that's pass catcher? Anyway, that might favor that kind of activity. And that might mean that Pitts and Drake and Zacchaeus might actually get some garbage time, deep bomb kind of things. Atlanta actually could be an interesting defense to stream. I probably wouldn't stream them. The kicker looks pretty good, extra easy, so that tells me there's going to be a lot of movement, but the kicker's probably going to get some field goals, so that's good. Cincinnati, Atlanta's, when you see green, that means all aboard, play every position. Looks very balanced with Mixon, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, even Hurst. It looks like everybody lines up for a taste this week. And of course, if they get ahead, they'll move and let Mixon and P. Ryan be heavily involved. So if Atlanta can't keep up, this actually may mean you get less points from the pass catcher. That always sucks. So see, with every good news, there's always bad news. Okay. Dallas, Detroit. Dallas gets Dak back, and Detroit is all aboard. Play everybody all day long. Look at the easy. Detroit is the opposite. Dallas is rough and tough. And Hawkinson and the wide receiver, Sun God, may have some opportunities, especially if it gets to be out of hand in a garbage time situation. Chargers Seattle looks like Eckler's all good. Looks like Walker's all good. And it looks like Chargers with Everett and the quarterback, but the wide receivers, if Allen's not there, it could mean Carter or somebody, because Williams is double teamed. Some other mystery wide receivers could show up here. This looks like a balanced situation. Seattle running, and there's a passing situation involved. Not sure the tight ends this week, Fant and Disley, but it looks to me like this is a balance, and I think that this implies that it's a back and forth kind of game, so there may not be any garbage time plays. So that, you may not go too deep on some of the wide receivers there. So there's some opportunities, but there's some limits as well. Kansas City, uh, San Francisco. Kansas City's playing at San Francisco, so San Francisco does have an advantage, and it looks like Kansas City all day long, whereas Frisco is pretty tough. So this Vegas thinks it's Kansas City beats Frisco, but it's close. And so this could be a shoot 'em out kind of game. And Kansas City is going to have to do things, probably a lot more passing. So Juju may get in on it. Kelsey certainly is going to get in. And could be an interest. This to me is a very interesting game because Frisco should have the advantage for this. So I figure this could be a really interesting situation. Okay. And so you can go through here. Here's my team, position, player, high, average, and low uncertainty. And I rank Falcons at 28, so that's probably not worth your time. The kicker, though, nice, 85. He's a kicker one this week. Mariota's QB2. Probably not much more than that. Alger, Huntley, they're RB3s. Pitts can be a tight end one, but high uncertainty levels, so you don't know what you're getting. I think you'll get some catches. I'm just not sure. Touchdowns. Drake is about a WR2 type right here, but high uncertainty. Zacchaeus is safer, but he's a 4. and then the rest of these players I'm not playing. So you see the Vegas ideas, the DAP situations, and now my rankings with uncertainty should fill in the pieces of the story here. And this game is a story. All games are a story. Cincinnati, the Bengals D, intriguing, 71. That's maybe a play, maybe not. I think there are other options, but it's not bad. McPherson, you want to play that kicker all day long? Burrow, 100. Low uncertainty is the best you can get. Mixon figures, 73. He's pretty much a high RB2, low RB1 this week kind of play. Don't know about it. Hurst, he's a tight end 1 deep or tight end 2 high. Definitely a streaming option this week. Chase figures to have the advantage. In fact, all the wide receivers could catch a touchdown this week. This is nice. Chase could get 2 here. In fact, Higgins and Boyd to me are much closer in your lineups than Chase. Chase stands out as a 1. Higgins is a 2-1. Boyd is a 2-3 type. So I think in a deep flex, lots of flex, I would play any and all of these. I'd play them both, play them 3. If you have 3 flexes, play them all. Don't have 3 flexes. Or don't have 3 on my team. Okay. I just want to visit the downside, and here's the bad news for the week. 7 poor scoring games predicted. That's bad. The only advantage is in garbage time with these underdogs. There may be some surprise players that could benefit from a shifting to passing bombs all day long kind of scenario. So if you can pick the surprising candidates in here, you might do well in daily fantasy or your lineups. Whereas these players, if it's going to be such an advantage, such as Buccaneers, Panthers, Dolphins, Steelers, Patriots, Bears, and it looks like it's a big spread, then they may run more than usual this week because they've got the advantage. So going into these games, it looks like it's these teams to lose. Vegas says that's the case. There are some closer games though in this, but you're just not going to score a lot. So defenses could have some surprising outcomes here. So look at my DAPs. Go quick. You can look at here's those 4, and then the teams, and then I've got the other 3, and then the teams as well. So go through, parse this out. It's 23 minutes. You don't want to hear me run my mouth too much longer. So anyway, I think you got the sense of how I approach it, and this is kind of what I see this week. And so it's kind of the haves of the have-nots this week because the other 2 games are above average. So it seems kind of you've got 6 fairly good scoring games and 7 or sucky games. So it's kind of feast or famine this week. It's an interesting week for a lot of reasons. Okay, I wish y'all good luck. I hope this helped you. Start, keep your diary going. If I'm helping you, great. If it's working for you, please come back. I hope I'm winning for you. Feel free to let me know. Nobody wants to comment. I got it. But if you are doing well, if I suck, let me know. But this is how I approach it. You're seeing my process. Okay, take care. Let's crush week 7. Woo woo.